The Friday edition of the Locked On NFL podcast focuses on the Bills win and them getting on track. Are they back on track to being the best team in the NFL? Also, the Patriots offense in a bad place. And what's going on with the Deshaun Watson situation as he's set to return to Houston with the Browns. But so are 10 of the accusers in the stands. We'll talk about that and our pick six here on the Friday edition. It's Chris Carter and your boy Q here on the Locked On NFL podcast. Let's get into it.
You are Locked On NFL, your daily NFL podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello, welcome to the Friday edition of the Locked On NFL podcast. I'm Chris Carter. He's your boy Q. We're of Locked On Steelers and Locked On Raiders, and this is the Locked On NFL podcast that you can find on Apple, Spotify, Google Podcasts, Odyssey, and YouTube. If you're watching this video on YouTube, hit the like button on the video if you enjoyed. Hit the subscribe button on our YouTube channel to get all of the daily Monday through Friday episodes, as well as the bonus content that we got coming out every single day here on the Locked On NFL channel. Also, today's episode is brought to you by BetOnline. BetOnline has you covered all season long with more props, odds, and lines than ever before. BetOnline, where the game starts. Q, how you doing, my man?
I'm fantastic, man. It's week 13 in the NFL. I can't believe it's already week 13. It's nuts, man. I mean, I say it every week, but it really does blow my mind that this season is flying by as quickly as it has. And I know that the NFL has an extra week. I mean, we literally have 18 weeks and 17 games, but man, the regular season is going to be over sooner rather than later, and it's going to be a little depressing when that happens. But I mean, it's right around the corner, brother. We're in December now.
It really is, and it drives me nuts every year. Where I'm like, we ramp up so much for it, and then we get so busy that we blink, and it's December, and we only got a month of this left before the playoffs are here, and that's just crazy to think about. But hey, time flies when you're having a lot of fun covering the NFL. But let's get to what happened in the NFL last night. The Patriots got stomped by the Bills. 24-10. It wasn't as big of a stomping as it could have been, like how we saw these teams match up in the playoffs last year. But outside of one long touchdown with a quick pass to Marcus Jones, the Patriots offense looked like it never had a chance. The Bills, meanwhile, looked like this was the version of the Bills that everyone expected, not the one that was struggling against the Lions last week on Thanksgiving Day. Are the Bills the best team in the AFC right now, Q? Or are they number 2 or even number 3 with the rise of the Bengals?
I think that they're probably number 2. I think they're right around number 2 or number 3. I got to give the tip of the cap to Kansas City. I mean, Kansas City is just consistently Kansas City. They are who they are, sitting there with a 9-2 record. Of course, there's a big game this weekend with Kansas City and Cincinnati. We'll talk about that later. But, I look at Buffalo, and I feel like that's a game that they really needed to have. They needed to get that win. And even though they did, and like you said, they kind of, lightweight stomped a hole in the Patriots, it should have been a lot worse than that. And if I'm Buffalo, I'm slightly concerned. I mean, you got to be happy with the win. And, they obviously improved their overall record. That's great. And look, they've been really good on the season. I mean, 8-3, 9-3, whatever their record is at this point. I mean, they're the upper echelon. They only have 3 losses on the season. So they're good, but it just hasn't been dominating good. And earlier in the season when they had a couple of losses in a row, it's just, and then the Josh Allen injury. So It's like they look good, but they don't look great. And right now in December, as you ramp up towards the playoffs, like we talked about, you want to start peaking. I don't think Buffalo's peaking right now. And like I said, good that they got that victory over the Patriots. They needed it, but it wasn't really the dominant nature that it should have been. It felt like the score was, 44-10 instead of 24-10, right? I mean, it felt like they really put up a lot more points. And when you look at it, they only put up 24.
Their next 5 games to finish out the season are versus the Jets, who are one of the teams that beat them.
Yeah, looking good.
Versus the Dolphins, another one of the teams that beat them. And then they're at the Bears, but then they're at the Bengals, and then they play a rematch with the Patriots in the season finale. What's crazy is I could see a lot of these games going either way, especially the Jets, Dolphins, and Bengals. But I also see this as a chance for them to this is their year. Like last year, it's supposed to be, right? Like that's what I'm saying. But this is what's supposed to be their year. I see this is their chance to step up and say, look, Kansas City has had their time. The Bengals, y'all made it last year. This is our year to do it. And I think that they need to assert themselves in these last 5 games, especially against the divisional opponents and the Bengals. That's going to be one of the games of the year on the day after New Year's. there. But let's flip to the Patriots real quick before we start talking about other things in the NFL. Their offense just looks terrible. Bringing back Matt Patricia, the things that have not worked out with Mac Jones. Everyone was trying to be excited about his 382 yards passing against the Vikings in a loss last week. And then he goes back and he's yelling at people on the sidelines and he's saying it wasn't directed at anyone. It was just emotion. But it's clear this isn't enough on the Patriots offense. Their way of just not having star playmakers, under Tom Brady. It's clear Bill Belichick, that way under Bill Belichick was only good for when Tom Brady was their quarterback.
Right. And, it's the 20th century football. I mean, you've got to evolve. Right. And it's funny. I was doing ESPN National on Thursday night with Freddie Coleman, and we were talking about this game. And I said, Freddie, it feels like the Patriots right now offensively are like Alabama before Alabama had Lane Kiffin as their offensive coordinator, right? I mean, in Alabama, they used to butter their bread by, we're going to run the ball really well. It doesn't matter what quarterback we have under center. We're going to win because our defense is strong and we have a great run game. At some point, that didn't work anymore. So Nick Saban had to say, all right, damn it, we're going to bring in this guy. I'm not a fan of Lane Kiffin, but we're going to bring this guy in. He's going to open up the offense and he's going to evolve us. The Patriots need to evolve. I think they have a good quarterback in Mac Jones, but they don't have a good offensive scheme. Their good offensive scheme is in Las Vegas right now. And look, he's trying to figure it out in Las Vegas with Josh McDaniels. Bill Belichick thought the Patriot way, in air quotes, and I'm not trying to sound disrespectful, but that's going to be the way that it's going to work. Oh, I could put Matt Patricia to be OC. I could put Joe Judge to be OC. Not a big deal. It's not, we'll get it figured out because we're the Patriots and we have a strong defense. They do. They have a pretty solid offensive line, even though Thursday night it didn't look very good. But you've got to evolve the offense. Bill Belichick's got to get in the lab in the offseason. I know they're 6-6, and people are saying, well, they still might make the playoffs. It doesn't matter. All 6-win teams are not created equal. They have not evolved their offense. In the offseason, they got to get in the lab, like you mentioned, bring in some playmakers, and bring in a guy on the sideline that can hit the X's and O's and evolve the offense and bring it up to speed with what everyone else is doing. You got to, and I hate to use this line, you got to keep up with the Joneses. You cannot be stuck in your own way. You've got to continue to evolve. The Patriots have failed to do that.
I agree with that assessment. I think it's fine. I wonder how much egos were in play here because, of course, Bill Belichick wanted to prove that his way could work with anybody out there. And not, Tom Brady, he's won a Super Bowl without Bill Belichick. Even now, when they're 5-6, they're atop the NFC South right now. And Tom Brady looks like he could be figuring out a way with the guys over there. But if you're Bill Belichick, if you do want to have another run at some point before you retire, not that he needs one. I mean, he's, everyone would consider him the greatest coach of all time and all that. But if you want to have another run, if you're he's a competitive guy, you need to load up and get some guys who are going to be useful in your scheme. That's the other thing. Like, I think it was Richard Sherman after the game who brought up, he was like, you got Jonnu Smith, you got guys, Devontae Parker, use them. And they're just not. And it just seems like whatever scheme that they came up with this year hasn't been working. And it'd be different if Matt Patricia was some guy that wasn't used to this team, but he's been around. He's been a Belichickite for years. He knows the organization. This should have been a lot smoother of a transition.
They could have got Bill O'Brien. Right? They could have gone to Alabama, and they didn't want to get Bill O'Brien. They didn't want to bring him in because they didn't want him to be a one-and-done guy. Right? And I get that. But at the same time, sometimes you ever heard of a bridge guy? He could have been a bridge guy, right? Okay, you don't have Josh McDaniels anymore. He's been calling the offensive plays forever, right? For the longest. So obviously there's going to be a little bit of a drop-off. And by the way, you're working with a new quarterback as well. I mean, 1 year in the league in Mac Jones. So Bill O'Brien, I'm not a big fan of Billy O, but at least he knows that organization and he knows how to call offensive plays. He's doing it at Alabama. He's parlaying that into, his next job, which is fine. But it's just – you just got to have a guy that has been there, done that. Matt Patricia failed in Detroit. Why would you want to have him calling plays? Joe Judge failed in New York. Why would you want to have him anywhere near your play call? I mean, it's just, like none of that makes sense. So it's unfortunately for the Patriots and Patriot fans, it's the arrogant Patriot way of, oh, well, we could do it because we're the Patriots and it's not a big deal and you're not as good as us. Well, that backfired on them. And so, again, they got to get into the lab, and I'm sure they will. I've heard people say Bill Belichick can't coach without Tom Brady. I think that's silly.
Yeah, that's too much.
He's a damn good coach. Those two guys just happen to blend together really well, and they made magic. And that happens sometimes. That's when you strike gold, and they did for a very long time. He's got to get back in the lab and figure it out moving forward.
We talked about all those coaches returning to either they have returned or they will return to the Patriots at some point. We got to talk about the big story in the NFL about a guy returning to his former team, and that's Deshaun Watson. He's set to start against the Houston Texans, his first start for the Cleveland Browns since that big trade happened, and then all the fiascos broke out. We'll talk about what's going on there and an update with that situation in just a minute. But first, we got to talk to you guys about Prize Picks. Of course, Prize Picks is the number one way and the number one new way to play daily fantasy out there. Prize Picks is really simple. All you got to do is pick 2 to 5 players, and if you have a beat on their day in fantasy, you look at their Prize Picks projection for a certain stat, and if all you have to do is say more or less on that stat, and you can win up to 10 times your money. And you can make as many entries on Prize Picks as you want. It's simple, it's easy, and you're not competing against millions of other people throwing in their lineups like a lot of daily fantasy platforms. You're just guessing more right on your picks to beat the house. And that's just not just with NFL, that's NBA, that's NHL, college sports, and much, much more. Download the Prize Picks app today or go to prizepicks.com to sign up and play daily fantasy sports. First-time users can receive a 100% instant deposit match up to $100 with promo code Locked On. That's LOCKEDON, Locked On, all capital letters, all one word, when you go to prizepicks.com or you download the Prize Picks app. Back here on the Locked On NFL podcast. It's the Friday edition with Chris Carter and your boy Q. Q, let's switch topics here. This isn't going to be a game of the week. It's not going to be a game that many people, I think, even watch outside of this one element. But we do have to talk about the Deshaun Watson situation again. You and I harped on this a lot during the offseason. He has now been reinstated to the team. He served his suspension. He's not talking about the suspension or the situation or anything like that. He's just talking about football. And I think that's the smart thing if you're him, is to avoid the situation, because I don't think there's anything he's going to say about that, about this moving forward that's going to help his situation. But it has been reported that 10 of his accusers will be in attendance in a suite at the game in Houston when he makes his return. Q, what's your readout on how this situation is played out for Deshaun Watson? Is this enough right now, or is this going to be the last thing that is this the last big news point that we hear about it if he starts playing well?
I don't know, man. It's really a weird situation, right? You want to look at it and say, okay, he served his suspension, so now we should put it all behind us and let it move on, right? Let him move on with his life and go play football. Cleveland signed up for it. They gave him the contract. They traded for him. All done, right? Everything should be a wrap. So, I mean, that's on the surface, that's kind of how I feel it's going to go. And especially if he goes out there and starts playing well, we all know that winning cures all. It's the ultimate deodorant to everything that stinks. And, this whole situation stinks. This situation is the reason, one of the main reasons why Lamar Jackson doesn't have a contract in Baltimore right now, right? But that's a whole nother side story. It's like, this is the tree, and there's so many different branches that could be played off of this. But this situation with this game he's going to be playing in Houston, with Tony Busby having, the suite there, and the Tony Busby is the lawyer for all the plaintiffs in the case, the civil cases against Deshaun Watson that have been settled, right? I mean, for him to have a suite and him to come out and say that there's going to be 10 of the alleged victims there, it's weird to me, but I don't want it to be weird to me. And why I mean by that is because if the ladies say that that's what they need, or that's what they want to kind of be able to, one, not be forgotten, or two, that's what they need to kind of move past this situation, so be it. I just don't feel like that's what the case is. I feel like Tony Busby is one of those, and I know he is. He's one of those look at me now type lawyers. Yeah. And so it's like, I feel like he's putting on a sideshow for him. And that's what it doesn't set right with me. But it's hard because I'm not in the room. You're not in the room. It's hard for us to judge intent. I just don't think that the intent, just my gut feeling, the intent is very good here by lawyer Tony Busby.
No, I mean, and it's fair to speculate that. I do think it's fair that that's what he's looking to. And listen, as a person who studied law and worked in law, like there's a lot of people that take those type of tactics because this is a high profile case and they want to make sure it's out there. But at the same time, we do have to consider the merit, like you said, of what, these are women who said they've been aggrieved by Deshaun Watson. They have the situation has not been resolved, and they don't want people to just be like, oh yeah, football, and he's throwing touchdowns and everything's fine and he's fine. What was that thing? We don't even remember what that was. And if they want to make their presence felt, I get it. I understand that. But I'm with you. I don't know how this is going to play out. I don't know what's going to happen before. Is this a thing that continues to happen? Do more accusers go to his next game?
Right.
When that happens. I think there's a lot of questions here because also it's like when they're attending the game, what are you doing? Are you rooting for the Texans to beat the Browns? Like, is that like, I don't know. It's just
weird.
It's weird because they're not.
It's
not like CBS or anyone's going to put them on TV. They're just going to be there.
Right. That's the thing. Like, maybe the camera goes to him. Maybe the camera does show him and say, maybe that becomes a storyline because look, it's the it's not Jaguar. Excuse me. It's the Browns and the Texans. It's not like the game is going to be fantastic.
Right.
I mean, that's the other thing. It's like, what is the storyline going to be most of the game? I feel like it's going to be about this situation. Every time Deshaun Watson takes the field, you're going to hear a lot of cheers and you're going to hear a lot of boos. Right. I mean, Deshaun Watson was the mayor there in Houston. He was the guy. He could do no wrong. And look, he did a lot of good. Let's not get it twisted. He did a lot of good in Houston, from taking care of people that work around the stadium, janitors and people that he would feed, give meals to, give money to, donate. I mean, he did a lot of great things, especially when the hurricane hit and the flooding was going on in Houston. I mean, he's done a lot of good. And then when he wanted to get out of there, then all of a sudden all these allegations and everything that happened behind closed doors that nobody knew about started rolling out. And so the breakup there in Houston was really ugly. So how is the fan base from the Texans? How are they going to react? I know half of them still love Deshaun Watson. The other half hate him because he wanted to leave. So I just think that there's going to be so much weird optics in this game. I know the NFL wanted this, and this is what they wanted, a little bit of chaos and all eyes on this game. And, this will be a fun storyline. Deshaun Watson returns to play his old team. But this one, they might have bit off a little bit more than they could chew in this situation.
Yeah, I think the NFL has enough with a lot of the really good games they have this weekend. There's a lot of really good matchups that I think would be intriguing. And then you have this game where the outcome, I don't think, has much impact on anything this year outside of, if the Texans pull off an upset, do they put themselves in a position where the Bears might take their number one pick, if all things continue the way that those teams have gone. But like you said, I do think that this isn't the best situation for the NFL right now. But again, they set themselves up for it. This is what they scheduled. And I mean, like, I don't care what anybody says. By the suspension, there's it's not a coincidence. The suspension number matching this game. That I don't care what anybody says. That was deliberate. And here we are now. And we're talking, and here we are. We're talking about a game that no one else, you and I, would not be talking about this game otherwise if it wasn't for this situation. So, but that's the NFL. They want everyone talking about their stuff all the time. But we will talk about the top games coming up for the NFL in our Pick 6, where we pick our top 6 games of the week. It's going to be a big weekend. We got a lot of winning teams that are coming into this formula. We'll break all of that down in just a minute here on the Friday's edition of the Locked On NFL podcast. But first, we got to talk to you guys about Audible, because Audible is releasing a new slate of football podcasts that we're sure you're going to love. You can find Think Like a Champion now wherever you get your podcasts. Think Like a Champion is a brand new podcast from Russell Wilson and Audible. Russ is a champion on the field, but off of it, we rarely know the grind on the path to greatness. Russell Wilson, alongside co-host Harry Wilson and the late Trevor Moawad, digs into high-performance athletes, artists, and leaders who push the boundaries of their potential. You can hear two-time Super Bowl champion and MVP Von Miller deliver sharp insights about performing at your highest level in moments of extreme pressure, or NCAA champion Tim Tebow discuss how to find your unique personal mission in the world. Head on over to Locked On Presents for a sneak peek of Think Like a Champion, or catch the full series available anywhere you get your podcast, available everywhere now. Audible. Get in the game. Back here on the Friday edition of the Locked On NFL podcast. I'm Chris Carter. He's your boy Q. It's time for the Pick 6. And as always, with the Pick 6, we want to remind you that all our shows are often sponsored by Bet Online. We thank you for riding with us in this one. A Pick 6, we got a lot of games this week that are very interesting. We didn't have to pick from some duds. We've had some weeks where we've been picking through like, man, who's going to care about this one? But that's not the case this week. Let's lead off with a 1 p.m. game here that if you had told me preseason, I wouldn't have cared about this game. But because of the way these two teams have played, the 7-4 Jets are at the 9-2 Vikings. And I do think it's going to be interesting to see how this game plays out. The Vikings are at home. They've been on a roll, but the Jets come into this game as 3-point underdogs, which means that the betting books, the bettors in Vegas see this game as even. According to Bet Online, it's -3 favoring the Vikings, but of course 3 points goes to the home team. -155 for bets on the Vikings, +135 on the Jets. The over/under set at 44.5. I'll take the over there with these two teams. I think that the Vikings will put up some points. Q, you look like you're an under guy. I know that unders has worked a lot this year, but who you got to win though?
That's a tough one, man, because this is really, in my opinion, the Mike White Bowl, right? I mean, Mike White came out for the Jets and played really well in relief for Zach Wilson. I think it's Mike White the rest of the way for the Jets, and they have a defense that can get it done. That's the thing about it. I love the Jets defense. I really do. I think that it's fantastic. I just don't know, can Mike White keep up the pressure and playing the way that he did last week? He played against Chicago last week. Chicago's not very good. Minnesota is. But then again, they also had a 40-burger put up on them against the Cowboys, right? So, true. I mean, there's so many.
But they're the Cowboys.
Right. Right. I mean, they are. But, the Jets have a tough defense. And if they can go out there and their offense is worth the salt, I mean, I very well think that they could win this game. I'm matter of fact, you know what? I just talked myself into it. I'm going to roll with the Jets. I'm going to roll with that defense. I don't have 100% confidence in the offense, but I believe that defense could get it done and slow down Justin Jefferson and that Vikings approach. And they're going to get it done. I'm rolling with the Jets in this one.
I'm sticking with the Vikings, and I guess I'll take the points with the field goal. It's close enough that it's there. I think them being at home will get them an advantage. It will be a close one, but I see Kirk Cousins, Justin Jefferson versus Sauce Gardner. It's going to be an 8 time matchup. So love that one. Let's move on to an NFC East showdown. The 7-5 Commanders at the 7-4 Giants. Didn't have either of these teams at this point of the season. If you had told me at this point of the year that both of these teams would be, jockeying for wild card positions in the playoffs, I would have told you you're drunk. But here they are, and this is a pick'em game right here, according to Bet Online right now. The Commanders favored by a single point. The money line is -130 Commanders, +110 Giants. The over under is set at 40. That's interesting because I don't trust either of these offenses, but 40 is just a real low number in the NFL. But Q, I'm going with the Commanders. I think their defense has been figuring some things out. I think they'll do enough on offense to overcome this game. And I think the Giants, whereas the Commanders, they're gonna have their. I think their talent's going to catch up with them at some point. But the Giants, I think that they've spent all their chips of big wins this season to get to this point.
Yeah, it feels like that they're starting to come back down to earth, right? Which is still a great season for the Giants because no one thought that they'd be in the position that they are right now, in week 13 of the NFL season. I got to look at the Commanders, and I got to tip the cap to Ron Rivera and Taylor Heineke, right? Those are the ones that are getting it done. And really, I know the defense plays well, but for me, it's the leadership of Ron Rivera and the belief that the team has when it comes to Heineke. I mean, these two teams playing in this game, man, neither one of them have like star-studded rosters, but they're still finding ways to win. And right now, if the season ended, all four teams in the NFC East would be in the playoffs right now. Like, that is insane. I don't want to pick the Commanders at all. I really don't, because I want to think that they're gonna that bubble's gonna burst as well. But the G-men, man, they're banged up. It's a struggle. Oh man, this is a tough one. Saquon,
right?
I mean, look, they're trying to bring OBJ back, right? I mean, that's a lackluster talent that they have right now. I'm gonna just roll with the Commanders and say that they figured out how to get it done. I'm not 100% confident in that, though. I'll tell you that. I mean, I think it's an intriguing game because of that. You just really don't know, and that's why it's a pick 'em. You really don't know who's gonna win this one, what it's gonna look like. I like Brian Daboll, what he's done with the Giants, though, but I'm gonna go with Ron Rivera, the old wily veteran, and the calm, which is in that storm that's called the Washington Commanders.
Q says left hand up. It's the Commanders. Let's go see what the other one did. This could have been a game of the week if there weren't so many other important games to look at. But the 7-4 Titans face the Philadelphia Eagles at 10-1 in Philadelphia. This is a game that I think could get interesting in the trenches. The Eagles are 4.5-point favorites over the Titans. Money line is -210 for the Eagles, +180 for the Titans. The over/under set at 44. I think I'm fine betting the under there because these two teams are going to try to run the ball a lot. I don't see either of these sides having much success airing it out too much in this game. But I'm going to give the edge to the Eagles. 4.5 points though. Yeah, I'm gonna say I think the Titans, they've been good at times, but they've been a little too inconsistent for me. I think that the Eagles' defensive front does enough to kind of disrupt Derrick Henry, and that keeps the Titans' offense from flowing. But Q, am I crazy here by believing in Philly right now?
Well, I'll tell you, I believe in Philly as well, but man, Philly's run defense has been bad, right? There's a reason why they went out and made those free agent signings, Sue and Joseph and brought those guys in, knowing that Jordan Davis had been out. And so they're trying to shore up that run defense. They've got to figure that out. It's December, right? You got to be able to run the ball and stop the run in December. I love Jalen Hurts, big fan of his. I love what he's been able to do and really take his game to the next level this year. But Tennessee's coming on, man. They're coming on really strong. They started out the season really slow. They're coming around the corner. I can't go against Philly because I don't want to go against Philly, right? But again, this is another one, like you said, could be the marquee matchup of the weekend if there wasn't so many really good games. This was going to be fantastic. I'm a roll with Philly because I roll with Jalen.
I feel you on that. Jalen Hurts is often a winning factor there, and he's pulled out so many tough ones already. They pulled out that Colts win not too long ago, so we'll see how that plays out. Moving along here with our pick six, looking at Bet Online odds. This is a very interesting game because these are two different teams that are very different from each other. The 8-3 Dolphins visit the 7-4 Niners. The Niners love to play great defense, ground and pound, run the clock out, sparingly use Jimmy Garoppolo when it's advantageous for them. The Dolphins, they want to air it out. They want to let Tua Tagovailoa get the ball to Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle. They want to get it to those guys. This is going to be an interesting clash of styles, but I'm picking the Dolphins. I think that Tua is going to do enough in this game. I think there's going to be enough big plays to kind of change up the pace from what the Niners normally like to do, and that's how the Dolphins are going to get the win. But if you look at Bet Online right now, the Niners are actually the favorites by 3.5 points, minus 195 money line for the Niners, plus 170 for the Dolphins, over under at 46.5. I'm going with the Dolphins, especially if I get those points going for me if I'm going on Bet Online. Q, who you got?
The 49ers are favored for a reason, man. And I'm sticking with that reason, man. That defense, especially in the second half of games, is incredible. Shutting teams out in the second half. Like, you better do all your damage, Miami. You better do it in the first half. In the second half, the 49ers, they ratchet up that defense. And I'll tell you this, I don't know what's going to happen, how this season is going to play out. The defense that the 49ers are playing with is championship defense. I have no problem saying that. Now, I'm not saying that Jimmy G is going to lead them to the promised land and get it done offensively, but the defense that they have is championship defense. When you're able to basically shut teams out in the second half of games, when normally in a normal NFL game, that's when it gets close. That's when you see the run. That's when you see these games tighten up. That's incredible, man. I got to give them a lot of credit. To D'Amico Ryans, excuse me. He should be a head coach somewhere next season. But those defensive coordinators there in San Francisco, they seem to always have a strong defense. Robert Saleh, D'Amico Ryans. I mean, the list goes on and on. I don't know how many former 49er defensive coordinators are head coaches or have been head coaches in the league, but I feel like it's been a lot. So I'm going to roll with San Fran. I'm not worried about the points. They're going to get this dub.
Let's stick in the West because that was in San Francisco. Let's go to your Oakland, the Las Vegas Raiders. I always be mixing up where they at nowadays. But I'm about to call them the San Diego Chargers, the Los Angeles Chargers. This is what's weird switching around in the West Coast, man.
Come out west and hang out. You'll be all right.
But the 4-7 Raiders host the 6-5 Chargers. This is an interesting AFC West matchup, and the Raiders are favored at home, granted by a point by Bet Online. But both it's minus 117 for the Raiders, minus 103 for the Chargers. The over-under is set at 49.5. No one's believing in either of these defenses, but I'm going with the Raiders. I think they've been playing better football. You and I talked about this before the season. I don't believe in the Chargers until they actually show me that there's something special, and they haven't shown me that this year. I think that them on the road against the Raiders have been playing better football. I think that they get it done. It's going to be close, but I do think the Raiders win at home.
It's going to be interesting. When the season started or before the season, when we go through the schedule and we say wins, losses, I had the Raiders splitting with the Chargers. Well, they lost week 1 in LA against the Chargers. So if that stands true, then the Raiders win on Sunday at Allegiant Stadium. But, the Raiders have been a weird team, man. They really have. They had high expectations, and they clearly haven't lived up to it. And then they've won 2 in a row in walk-off fashion, one by Devontae Adams, one by Josh Jacobs. I mean, it's really weird how they're putting everything together. And it feels like, watching it up close and personal, feels like they're starting to come together, but are they? And then this is an AFC West division opponent. The Chargers, they're sitting there in second place, but it's not a pretty second place. I said it earlier when I was talking about the Patriots and said that 6-win teams, they're not all created equal. The Chargers have 6 wins, but it's not really an impressive 6 wins. No. It's kind of like, the ball bounced their way a couple times, which is great. Hey, kudos to them for having the ball bounce their way and them taking advantage of it, but it hasn't been pretty. So I'm going to stick with the philosophy that the Raiders and Chargers are going to split, just like I said at the beginning of the season. So I do think that the Raiders win, but man, this is going to probably be very, very much reminiscent of Week 18 last season when it went down to overtime and the Raiders were able to walk it off with a Daniel Carlson field goal. So I think it's going to be a very close game. That's why the line is at -1. And, we'll see how it all shakes out. Wouldn't be shocked if this game even goes overtime again.
Be really interesting to see if it does. Let's go to what is undoubtedly the game of the week. And that's the one I'm sure a lot of people waiting us to talk about. The 9-2 Chiefs visit the 7-4 Bengals, who are 7-2 in their last 9 games. The Chiefs come into this game on the road right now, and they're 1.5-point favorites. So this is very close. This is pretty much a pick'em game. You look at that. Yeah. The Chiefs -130 on the money line. Bengals +110. The over/under is set at 53. I'm taking the over. I think that's going to definitely hit with the way that these two offenses run. But Q, the Bengals have been playing better, but so have the Chiefs. And I think that the Bengals, they have the potential to be a more balanced offense than the Chiefs, but the Chiefs still have Patrick Mahomes, and for my money, is still the best quarterback in the NFL. Joe Burrow creeping up into that conversation, of course. Who do you got to win this game? And is this a chance for because I don't know if you've seen, there's been a lot of trash talk going on. The Chiefs are not happy about how they lost to the Bengals. Yeah. They've been, Justin Reed's been chirping, Hayden Hurst has been chirping.
On their minds.
Right. This has been something they've been focusing on, and the Bengals have had a good rebound to their bad start this year, but this is a Chiefs team that I think that they've been waiting for this game for several months now.
Yeah, it's been circled on their calendar, and I said earlier in the show I thought the Chiefs were the best team in the AFC, and I still believe the Chiefs are the best team in the AFC. I think they will get their revenge in this game. I know that everyone's going to analyze it. Smack it up, flip it, rub it down, do all kind of, whatever they got to do with this game just to talk about it.
Flip it up, rub it down, ho!
Exactly. I mean, it's just one of those situations when it's a game that's as sexy on paper as this one is, it's going to be one that gets talked about quite a bit. But honestly, I don't even think that this is one that, that is really a deep dive, right? I just think Kansas City's the better team. I think sometimes it could be simple. They're the better team. Will Cincinnati keep it close? Absolutely. Yeah. Cincinnati, like you said, they're playing a lot better, and never want to be disrespectful to the Bengal fans out there. But I just think this is one week that I just can't ride with them. I just think that Kansas City's going to get this one done. Like I said, they're playing really good ball. 9-2 so far on the season, and I know that they've had this game circled for a long time. They've been fixated on this game, and you know what? The only thing I'll say that could play against them, they might be too fixated on the game, and they might come out with a little bit too much energy, and all of a sudden by the second quarter, they're kind of gassed a little bit, right? I think that Andy Reid's a better head coach. Yeah, it does happen, though. Sometimes you get so amped up and so excited for something that you shoot your whole, everything that you got immediately. And you've got to be able to channel that and know that you need it throughout the 4-quarter game. So if the Chiefs lose this game, I would look at that and say that might be the reason. Maybe they came out the locker room too amped up, but I think Andy Reid will have them calm and settle. So I'm going to roll with Kansas City in this one. They get their revenge and improve to 10-2 on the season.
I'm with you on this pick. I think that the Chiefs are a better team right now, but I'm really intrigued because last year the Bengals did a really smart adjustment in the second half against the Chiefs in the playoffs. They backed off. They said, Patrick Mahomes, throw into the hordes of defenders. Like, we're not going to send anybody after you. You just go ahead and make that throw. We're going to trust our secondary to do it. The Chiefs have to have a response to that this time around. They can't let that be the case. And now they don't have Tyreek Hill to test that. I'll be very intrigued to see how Patrick Mahomes goes at it, and also how these two teams interact. I can see a lot of chippiness happening, but I'm happy. I'm right here with you. I'll take the Chiefs and the points here, picking another pick 6. But that's our pick 6 this week. A lot of big games this weekend, and heck, there might be some out there. Some people were like, "Why didn't you talk about this one?" Hey, you weren't part of the 6. Get over it. You might. It was all, yeah, we only got so long to be here. But again, thanks so much for checking us out here on the Locked On NFL podcast, the Friday edition with Chris Carter and your boy Q. Follow us at Carter Critiques here for Chris Carter, at your boy Q254 for Q. You can also listen to us on Locked On Steelers and Locked On Raiders, your team every day, Monday through Friday, just like you catch the Locked On NFL podcast Monday through Friday, and all the other great stuff that comes out on this channel. Stay tuned here. We got a lot more coming your way. We'll have all the breakdowns coming throughout the weekend, and then Q and I will be back next week talking everything. Actually, Q's going to be on the road. He's got to do some Thursday night football, so we might need to switch it up.
Yeah. Sorry.
It's all good. Thanks so much for checking out the Locked On NFL podcast. We'll be back on your screens and in your ears next week for the Friday edition. Stay tuned.